Custom Menu C. This is where we're adjusting how the shutter responds to different behaviors. So release priority S and C, single autofocus, continuous autofocus. If you're trying to fire off a shot, if this is on, it will fire even if the autofocus has not locked on. If you have this off, that means until focus is achieved, the shot will not be made. I like having it on and knowing that I can get a shot even if it's out of focus if I just go for it versus having the camera deny me. So again, same with continuous. If it's not locking focus and you have this off, the shutter will not actually fire even if you press the button down all the way. I leave this on, so I'd rather take an out of focus shot than miss a shot completely because of the camera telling me no. Allen H FPS is your frames per second. It's how quickly that shutter fires off. I set these to 3 frames per second low and 9 high. Again, depending what you do, if you're a sports photographer, if you do wildlife on rapid continuous autofire, you might dig that. It's like having a fast motor drive. Remember that high, you only autofocus the first shot and the rest do not get autofocused. On low, all of them get focused. These are the same things except in silent mode, which is electronic shutter. I set these again arbitrarily. I rarely use silent shutter or an electronic mode, so feel free to set these again as you wish. 5 and 11 is fine for me. Image stabilizer. I usually adjust this from the Super Control panel, but you can go in here and set it as well. Later you'll find you'll be adjusting more from the Super Control panel than in here. But I set it to SIS1. That uses the all 5 access, and it's using all of it without the camera trying to decide which way you're moving to do a panning stabilization, for example, up or down in one direction. So I set this to SIS1 instead of the other ones. If you do a lot of panning, you might want to look into mode 2 or mode 3 depending what you're doing. I like mode 1. For movie, I use MIS2. MIS2 is strictly the mechanical stabilization and not digital stabilization. Sometimes digital introduces artifacts or some kind of wobble into your video, so I usually stick with mode 2. But you can also turn it off if you're on a tripod. Alright, the next image stabilization for continuous shooting. This is if you want IS to be on even during continuous low or high. A lot of times if you're shooting at a high speed, sometimes IS will occasionally interfere with it. I haven't found it so in my images. I'd rather have it on than off, just so I can actually see a stabilized view through the lens versus a wobble with a very large telephoto. Halfway release, that means IS for me turns on when I half press the shutter, otherwise it turns itself off. I do this to preserve the battery a little bit. You can leave it off as well, and it'll be on all the time. I like it just when I half press, it'll kick on. Lens IS priority. I leave this off because I'm using all Olympus lenses at the moment, and these are stabilized by in-body stabilization in the camera. But if you use a Panasonic lens that has image stabilization in the lens, and you'd prefer to use the lens stabilization, turn this to on. That allows your lens to stabilize itself instead of the body doing it. But again, I leave mine to off since I'm not using any lenses with in-lens stabilization. Release lag time. That's how quick the camera fires the shutter after pressing the shutter button all the way down. I always leave mine on normal. Short decreases it, makes it kind of like a hair trigger. I find it a little too quick for me, but it also, Olympus states that you can damage the shutter if you hit the camera hard while this mode is selected. It's probably pre-cocking the shutter in some way, and maybe a jar could upset that. To me, that's not worth it. I just leave it on normal, and it's more than fast enough. So that's Custom Menu C.